Hey, welcome back to the Morse Code Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Morse. I don't have to tell you that we're living in a world that devalues and constantly threatens our humanity, socially, politically, and technologically. And I'm convinced that the only way for us to make it through, individually or collectively, is by holding on to and holding up our humanity. So in season 2 of the pod, we're digging into some deeper themes that speak directly to what makes us human, and hopefully themes that help us reconnect to that humanity, even in small ways. So today is sort of a tough one. Today I'm looking at grief. But not just the experience of grief or loss, but how we move on in the face of loss. How we keep people alive even if they're not here with us physically, and how we can hold grief and joy at the same time. With that in mind, I called in two of my favorite people, two people who have been through unimaginable loss and are still two of the most active, alive, engaged, and even joyful people I know. Amy McLaughlin is a lifelong St. Louisan, a professional, mother of two, passionate animal lover who can be found volunteering at the animal shelter most days. She talks to us about losing a parent, a child, and a sibling, and how she's been able to honor them while also somehow being one of the most joyful people you will ever meet. And Fred Wellman is a Kirkwood native, an Army combat vet 4 times over, I think, a West Point and Harvard Kennedy School alum, a podcaster on the Meidas Touch network, and a candidate for United States Congress right here in Missouri's 2nd District. Fred has had to deal with the loss of his own troops, of his Iraqi translators he grew close to while deployed, and his wife and unborn child in a car accident. Fred talks about his journey through PTSD and how having a purpose helps him cope with loss. So Fred, Amy, and I talk about the experience of loss, finding joy in spite of it all, and what we learn about human life through these experiences. It's a surprisingly upbeat conversation, and I think it will resonate with you, so please stick around. Here's Fred and Amy.
Thank you guys so much. I wanted to talk to each of you individually, and then I thought it might be nice to have you both together to talk a little bit about something that I think obviously affects a lot of us, and is something that I'm not sure I personally don't feel like is addressed, and it is hard to talk about, which is grief. The grief of losing a loved one, and what it's like to have to wake up the next day and move on. So I've got Amy McLaughlin and I've got Fred Wellman here to share a little bit of their experiences, both recent and farther away, to about how you went through that, what that was like, and how you moved forward. You don't have to, get into details, but if you could just talk a little bit about like what you went through, and then we can talk about how you moved on from there.
Me to go first? Okay.
Ladies first.
Yeah, just to give you a brief bio about me, I am a St. Louis native. I have 2 boys, and I'm a dog person, even though there's a cat in my lap right now. Animal person.
For those not watching, there's a cat.
Yes, there's a cat. I currently live in Kirkwood. But yes, unfortunately, I've had a few tragedies in my life. Most recently, I did lose my son in 2023, Braden Collins. Braden was 21 at the time, and he had recently joined the National Guard and gotten through boot camp and all of his basic training, and we were very, very proud of him for doing such a great job. And he had a wonderful job at the GM plant. He was a huge car person, loved cars. Anybody that lived close to him knew that because they could always hear his Camaro very early in the morning when he went to work at 5 a.m. He went out with his buddy for a night of fun and unfortunately got into a car accident, and Braden didn't make it. So, it was a very, as you can imagine, I've never been the same. Got a call in the middle of the night from his girlfriend letting me know. It was pretty hard on our family. I've been through a few other tragedies. I lost my dad in 2013, Braden, and then since then I lost my sister a year after Braden, and then my stepdad just this past year. So it's been a lot of loss. I've done a lot of learning and growing. I'm definitely not the same person I was, 3 years ago. I'm definitely a different person. But yeah, that's just a little brief introduction to my grief journey.
Yeah.
Such a fun topic.
Such a great topic to talk. Good on you for that. I'm Fred Wellman. I grew up in Kirkwood, actually, and Kirkwood High School guy, and went off to West Point in the Army. I actually met my lovely first wife at a classic West Point story. It was a tailgate party after a football game, and she was going to Mount St. Mary's, just north of West Point, where a lot of the girls went. We met, and we hit it off really quickly. Started dating right away, and it just worked. And we actually dated all through that last 2 years at West Point, and then got engaged and to be married. And actually, I went out to flight school Fort Rucker, Alabama. She broke up with me as I was leaving, and which is classic Jen, because she still had another year of college left. And so we broke up for a while, and I went to flight school, went to Korea, came back from Korea, and, we had stayed in touch. And then when I was back from Korea in Savannah, Georgia, she reached out and said, "Hey, let's hang out." I'm like, "Sure." She came down to visit. It went great, and went so well we decided to just get married. And so we were living together, and Desert Shield hit. We actually got married at the courthouse, and made some news actually because of that. And came back, and we were stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Had a wonderful relationship, and we were trying to get pregnant, and it took us a while, and she got pregnant, and so finally in September 1994, she was 7 months pregnant, and she went down to Nashville to run some errands for us. I was a company commander at the time, Fort Campbell, which means I had about 120 soldiers in my command, and she went down to Nashville. On her way back, she got stuck at the exit, the highway. Classic New York driver. She didn't want to wait for the line, so she did a quick right turn into a gas station, did a U-turn, pulled out, and there was a semi-truck parked on the highway, one of those country roads, and she didn't see. She pulled out and right in front of a pickup truck, and so she was T-boned, and she was gone immediately. And so I was sitting in a training meeting with a new commander who was kind of a jerk, and he got called out of the meeting, and I was like, doo-doo-doo, and I went to go get a Coke, and then they're like, "What are you doing here?" Get a Coke, and they brought me into what was our flight planning room, interestingly enough, and sure enough, we walk in, and there's the chaplain. That's never a good sign in the military, the chaplain's there. And I found out then that she'd been in this car accident. That was devastating. We had built a life. We had we had our nursery all set up. She would go into the nursery and fold baby's clothes and stuff, and then I was gone, just like that. I wasn't going to be a dad. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was 29 years old, and so it was really a very unique journey. I didn't know anybody who had lost anybody really. I mean, other than combat. I had lost 2 men in combat. So sure enough, that was how I started my journey, and starting all over again at 29, trying to figure out what that all means. So this is a journey. It's not a short one, unfortunately.
That's hard when you're so young.
Yeah, it was weird. And and this is 1994, so we didn't have, we barely had the internet then. I mean, there certainly wasn't online. We didn't even understand grief at that point. I mean, we had grief counseling and stuff like that, but certainly not, like we do now. I never saw that as a PTSD trauma either. That was just something that happened. It was a journey that, especially at such a young age, and then being on my own in the Army and having to do then you throw in the layers of the Army, the macho, I can take it, moving on. And when, as an Army officer, especially, you're encouraged to kind of, drive on. So it was a lot of layers at once.
I've been thinking about that, about the fact that you were in the Army, the fact that you had already lost men, and your story goes on to include more loss. the culture of the Army, just being a younger man, and just, as you kind of referenced, we were a little bit less sophisticated when it came to mental health at that point. And I'm wondering if going through that changed you any, or your outlook any, about, mental health, masculinity, connection, relationships, all that stuff.
I think it was a longer process. I think I tried to power through it, right? I'm sure you try to, just, I can do this. I mean, I think I told the story. I tell the story often. Jennifer died, so I had leave to, whatever they want to call it, grief leave, and sure enough, Saddam Hussein massed his border. People forget that in 1994, Hussein massed his troops on the border quite again. It's like, so I actually came off of leave 10 days after Jen died, and the baby. And so finally, I worked 30 straight days, and wow. I was exhausted. I was barely holding on by it. That's right. I hadn't paid any bills. The house was empty, and it was just a disaster. And but I was expected to carry on. When I finally did address my PTSD in 2018, finally, which is another story, during our therapy, in our what we call EMDR therapy, the start of my PTSD was not Jen's death. It was this colonel mocking me for being, weak, right. Crazy is how he did it, and so that is a culture in the Army that we struggle with as we went to war. Now, this is 1994. Well, then you had 2003. And what was interesting, what I love about this new generation of veterans is the Generation Z and millennials are much more open about talking about mental health, right? It's like, and then we have become, as Gen Xers, I think, and okay, so we talk about these things. Yeah. So it was really fun. I mean, I joke all the time. I'd go to veterans events in DC back in the 2000s, 2014, 2015, like we're all talking like, well, what do you like about your therapist? Yeah. A very different approach. I was like, well, I like my guy because he does this. We did EMDR. Oh, I used that shot. Comparing notes on our PTSD treatments. Like, well, I liked my EMDR. So we've come a long way, and I wish it had come sooner. Unfortunately, I didn't address my PTSD till I was in my 40s, late 40s. And by that time, my marriage is in shambles. My poor kids have had to deal with it, and they've seen me do the work. But it's a lot to come back from. It's there comes a lot with that package.
You just mentioned coming home. You haven't paid any bills. Yeah. The house is empty, and I think that's also something that combat veterans go through. Right? Is coming home to the silence.
Yeah.
And something that I've experienced, and I've thought about you, Amy, in particular, is you go through it, or I should say, it happens. There's a loss, and you're part of a community that have all lost this person, and there's a little bit of a rallying around, and there's activity, and there's discussion, and there's kind of a group sadness, and then everybody else starts to kind of dissipate, right? And the loss is still a loss 10 years later, right? And yeah,
I know. Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people do talk about that, and it's because it's true. That really does happen. I had a lot of family and friends, the very next day that came in to swoop me up and be there with me and stay the night at my house just to make sure I was okay. And my employer, I was very grateful. They were there for me, whatever I needed, as much time as I needed, grief therapist, whatever. Yeah, they were amazing. So I had all of these amazing resources just at my fingertips, which was great. And I know we talked about this before. I feel like your body kind of protects you at that time, right when it happens, because I think it's just too much for you to handle, or your body knows how much you can handle. Yeah. And so I think I just kind of went into a mode of, I need to get stuff done. You're preparing for the service, the funeral, and thank you cards for all of the flowers and the gifts and for people that did things for you. And spending that time with all of your family and friends. But yeah, you're right. And then it kind of gets quiet. And what do you do? I did have a good high school friend, Amy, who recalled another friend that we went to school with who had lost a daughter, and she recommended a grief counselor that was actually in Canada. And just so happened to be that she was hosting an equine grief retreat. And I have a fondness for all animals, so it sparked my interest. I also love nature and hiking, so I tied that into going to Banff first for a week just by myself.
Good call.
And doing, it was a very good call. Just doing some amazing hiking. And actually, that's how I ended up getting my tattoo while I was in Canada.
See, there you go, tattoo people.
Yeah, with Braden. I went to a popular hiking spot one day and it was too crowded. So I went back to the city just to walk around, and I looked up and stumbled upon this tattoo shop, walked in and talked to the lady, and we kind of put this together. I've got the three little blackbirds. Braden played the guitar, and he would always play that blackbird song for me. And this is his signature from when he was in the National Guard, and he would write me letters. So that was very therapeutic, doing that part of my journey. And then I was able to go on to the retreat for the second half of my trip. And it was amazing. Just spending time with animals when you're going through grief is very helpful. And then all of these women I met became my sisters. These amazing 8 women, we call each other sister moms, and we are still in touch. So I think it's very important when you're going through grief is to have somebody that is going through it with you together and understands what you're going through. So you're not alone, because those people do go away. They're going about their business, and I don't blame anybody for that. But it does get very quiet, and you do have those days where it's very bleak, and all you want to do is sit on your couch and cry and be sad and feel sorry for yourself. And you can't do that. You have to move on with your life. You have to find the reason to get up every day and move on with your life. And so you have to seek out those people that understand and know what you're going through. And so that was thank goodness for my high school friend, Amy. I love her to death. Yeah, she got me in touch with the right people. And to this day, through Facebook, the internet, I know you didn't have it back then, but we stay in touch.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys ever watched that Saturday Night Live skit with Kate McKinnon, and it's always about like they get kidnapped by aliens, or I'm Kate McKinnon, and it's like, well, I didn't have that experience. Let me talk about my. Wow, you had a really good experience. The other guy's like, well, I met Jesus. She's like, oh, I did not meet Jesus. Yeah, mine was very different. But I'm glad you went through that. So I'm glad you didn't. I think that's the. I have often said, I think, I did it wrong. And, people are very kind. Say, well, there's no way to do it wrong. I'm like, no, there is. I beg to differ. But I struggled too. But I had command. I had 120 soldiers. I had an expectation of a job to do. Unfortunately, I didn't have the luxury at the time to just check out, So I would, I had sleepless nights, and there was a certain bar that was only the one open at 2 a.m., so I went there, and running your own soldiers is not good. I got caught sleeping in my car outside the office, so I wouldn't miss work. I just go and park there and just sleep the night off, and it just, there became a certain point where it was unmanageable. And then for me, the breakdown came at Christmas. Jennifer loved Christmas. She was one of those annoying people who loved Christmas. Like, she started singing songs, start decorating in September, like, what are we doing here? Loved Christmas. And Christmas just hit like a ton of bricks. And I actually wrote Amy Grant, of all people. Wow. Jennifer loved Christmas so much that Breath of Heaven, Amy's song that she wrote about Mary, she calls it Mary's song. Jennifer played that at our wedding.
Wow.
I know.
That was Jennifer. That's classic Jen. God. Anyway, so and fan of the opera. Gosh, she was crazy. But
those are all great memories.
I know. So. And so I actually wrote, when Christmas came, I actually wrote a letter to Amy Grant, because I was just, you get in your head. Yeah. And God bless her, she wrote the most lovely letter back.
Wow.
And I got, because I said I was going to her Christmas concert in Nashville. We were living outside of Nashville. And it was a lovely experience, but it was sort of a very part of that journey. And you're right, I had moments of clarity, but it really kind of the whole thing came to a head at Christmas. And my boss Major Bill Gillen, who I still just worship to this day, his wife Kathy. Bill came in and said, all right, I'm gonna help this captain. So they called up the Army headquarters that handled personnel. And sure enough, my old commander from Desert Storm was running it. He called me the next day. I understand you need help. I'm like, I need to get the F out of here. And he's like, okay, we got it. I got moved to Hawaii and I got to start all over again. Now I had a boss who immediately wrapped his arms around me and said, all right, let's get you back on path. Let's get your career journey back. Because I had to leave this job. So it was such a key job. If I didn't get it, I would get promoted. They're like, hey, we got to take care of you. Make sure you get promoted. We're going to give you this job. You know, all these things. Then when I met a woman, decided to get married, he was like, okay, have you seen a grief counselor? Because maybe you should do that before you get remarried. Yeah. Okay. And I did. I got remarried. And Crystal was a lovely human being. She had 2 kids already. We had 2 more while we were there. So, Hawaii was an opportunity for me to kind of start over again. But I didn't have that safety net of people who understood my journey. In many ways, my attempt in 1994 was just to bury it. Move forward and just box it up, put it in a box. But you and I both know you can't box it up. Grief has grief is like oil. It's going to get into it's going to get in. It's not going to let you. You can't escape it. And you can create all the little things, the rooms in your mind, lock those doors, but they don't stay locked.
Right.
For me, it manifested, and especially once I left the Army, and I even lost that. Once that construct, the Army was gone too. It I think it really manifested itself even more. And I struggled for years. And I wish. I do think I had started wrong. It's funny because my fiance says she's a widow, but she went right into therapy and addressed it. She always says, actually, I'm further down the grief tree than you are because you boxed it up after a year and unboxed it 24 years later. And so really, I've always been on the journey of truly addressing it, pulling that out of the light, admitting the mistakes I made along the way, trying to be a better person for the mistakes I made, and then being a better person, and reconciling with my own approach to it. The grief journey can be different for everybody. It's not,
no, everybody's journey is different, like you said.
So I never judge.
Yeah.
People, they're out partying. Great, good for them.
Yeah. Well, and you can be happy and sad at the same time.
Exactly.
That's a big point that I learned as well.
Yes.
So it's okay to do those things. And it's also okay that it was at a different timeline. I mean, when I went to that grief retreat that I mentioned, there were moms there who lost their children 20 years ago.
Sure.
And they were just at the journey. So.
Yeah, because they'd probably try to bury it like some of us.
Yeah. Or you just weren't ready. If you just weren't ready. So
That's
everybody's timeline's different. You go through it differently.
Like in my case, I do give myself trouble, but there was things. I was an Army officer.
Yeah.
I was leading troops. I didn't have the luxury to say, screw it, somebody else will handle it. They won't.
Yeah.
Right.
And in many ways, I think that helped me. As the negatives I talk about a lot, obviously it's easy to talk about the negatives, but the positives are I had duty, I had service, I had a job to do. And I think I've always done better in my life when I have service, at least in my journey today in a lot of ways. I've always found a way to look, can I do more? I think a lot of that is living up to the loss of Hal and Mike. It's the loss of Jennifer and the baby. It's like, all right, I got to, one of the most poignant things you'll ever see put on film for guys like me is Saving Private Ryan. And the most poignant moment of any film probably ever on celluloid having to do with my world is that last moment where he morphs into the old man at the gravesite and says that, I hope I earned it. Yeah. And because Tom Hanks says, earn this. And so I think a lot of us who've lost men in combat, and of course, Jennifer and all these the loss that my friends in Iraq, Dr. Muhammad and everybody else I've lost over the years, I've always felt like I have to lead a decent life and earn that opportunity because it wasn't me. Should have been me. I should have run that errand. I should have flown the mission. Hal and Mike died. So I think in a lot of ways, I turned my grief into purpose as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is not an unusual path for so many people.
Well, I think that a lot of people, it takes them a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
But that's really a turning point. It was for me, is to figure out, how do you get up and keep moving and keep going in the day, after you lose your child, which is never supposed to happen. It still, catches me and takes my breath away sometimes, at any given moment. But you have to think of, well, now what? Do I sit here and feel sorry for myself? Or do I think about, what can I do with this? Do I talk about Braden? This is amazing that you're giving me this opportunity just to say his name and to talk about him. I mean, Braden was only here for 21 years, but he was such an amazing person.
saying about turning career to purpose and service. Well,
Yeah.
No, I was saying, I'm the son of a World War II vet. I went to West Point for that, in a lot of ways for that reason. I always wanted to serve. I knew I wanted to be I didn't want to be a soldier. I had dreams of being a pilot. I still ended up being a pilot somehow, which was crazy. Mostly because I didn't study in college and my eyes didn't go bad. All the smart guys had bad eyes. But I do think that, after the loss of, and not just Jen, my journey, unfortunately, is multiple, Hal and Mike in combat. You always blame yourself when you lose men in combat. You question every decision you made, everything that led to them flying that mission and not returning from it. I think it made me a better officer later because I was constantly trying. That's why I went to Ranger School as a captain. I was like, well, I'd be a better leader. I went, when I went to war the second time in 2023. I think I've told it before. I was a jerk, but I was going to get every one of those soldiers home, and every one of those soldiers got home. So for me, it is both a overt and a covert and an indirect sort of nod to the loss that I've dealt with because I'm still here. And as I look at those who aren't, Braden, and you look at Jennifer and the baby, and Hal and Mike and Dr. Muhammad and Assam, it's like I owe those folks more than just sitting on my ass, looking at my navel gazing. I always felt, even when I had a job, when I first got out of the Army, one of the frustrating things, I had a job like some, decent company, but it was just like, is this it? I mean, it's like this,
Yeah.
I need to do more. So when I started my company, it was very focused on service to veterans, service to military families, and making a difference. And when I went, even with the Lincoln Project, it was about, I believe my country's in danger, so I'm going to fight it how I can. And now I'm running for Congress because, if not me, who? Why not? I've been blessed with these gifts of notoriety in certain ways, in certain communities, and experience, unlike anyone else. And that, I think, gives me a certain insight that perhaps no one else running does, or certainly not our current member of Congress. So for me, I think it may have been an indirect path for me, but I do think for me, it gives me something I can at least go to bed at night and say, okay, I did more with this. Mm-hmm. I did more than just, earn a paycheck and get a boat. Yeah. It's just like, is that it? I mean, is this what you owe? Is this what I owe Jennifer the baby? Is this what I owe Hal and Mike's legacy, Bassam's legacy? People are like, why are you running for Congress? Well, why not? If not me, then who? And if not now, when? And so I'm doing it. And at the end of it, if I win, great. That's gonna be weird. If I lose, great. I'll have my head held high that I did what I did, and then I'll find something else to do. You've thrown yourself in other things, but I think it's probably. I was in the Army. I think in a lot of ways I threw myself into that.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I feel like it made me feel like how short life is and how precious life is.
Right.
Valuing each day. It seems so cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Every day, something I'm doing, I think of just even my sister, not even, but I also think of my sister, not just Braden, about, I'd love to call her up and go to this great restaurant with her or see this cool band,
Yeah.
And I can't do that anymore. She can't do that anymore. She would love that, you know? So each day I think of, oh gosh, there's so many things that I need to be more grateful for. Yeah. And beside the service part of it, I've been volunteering for the animal shelters for probably about 18 years now. So it's nothing new that I've done. But Braden was also a huge animal lover, adopted his dog Lucy. I'm the grandma now, and I've got her. I share her with my ex. But I love having that connection with Braden still. So I do try to go more often to the shelter. When I don't want to do it, I kind of channel my, I remember Braden being at boot camp or writing me letters about, his feet hurting or this and that. And I'm like, okay, I can get up and walk 3 dogs today, after what Braden went through. So it does make me feel good to give back no matter what. But there's also those little things that connect me with Braden after I do it as well. Yeah.
I've wanted to interview you for a while, and I've been working on you to come on the show. And one of the reasons is because you just exude this real joyful, engaged with life energy. And I imagine it's something that is somewhat just natural and intrinsic to you, but also is what you just described. Is that part of it? Do you have sort of an additional kind of urgency to throw yourself into things because of what you just described?
I think part of it is that. I think I've always been that type of person as well. I'm also just, when I'm around people, I always, I try not to inconvenience people. I know that sounds, I don't know. I'm just a happy person. I try to make people feel good when I'm around them. So I feel like a lot of that is, when I'm at home, I may share, save that for when I'm at home. But I know we talked about this before also. It's kind of like grief is a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
So I do have times when I'm around people and I'm not joyful. Sometimes I save that for, my family and closer friends, and where I'm not as nice or as joyful as I should be, and I don't even realize that I'm not being nice. But it's get to a certain point where I know that it needs to happen, and it's having a good cry or just staying at home all day and just watching Netflix or chilling, eating, getting DoorDash or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I have to let it out.
Yeah.
You have to let it process through your body.
Yeah.
Once you let it out, the next day, I know I'm going to feel better. So I just have to tell myself when I'm in those moments, it's going to get better. I'm never going to be back to the moment that I was before Braden passed, but I know that eventually I'm going to feel better. So, and I want to be happy. I'm here.
Yeah.
I want to live life, the rest of my life that I'm here as a happy person.
Yeah.
I don't want to be woe's me, poor me, feel sorry for me all the time,
Yeah.
Who wants to be around that? And it's not fun for me.
I'm so glad you just said all that. And I realized as you were talking that I think this is what I wanted to get to. And this is a question that I've been asking throughout the podcast. And it's a question that I ask myself and struggle with every day, which is having access to joy, having access to purpose, or like a reason to carry on through the hardest experiences. And we're talking right now about losing a loved one or family member, but obviously it's all around us. And you've been through years of PTSD therapy. You've been through grief therapy, and you've both, just had these life experiences. I think that's what I'm trying to get to. And you just spoke to it a little bit.
Setting those expectations for your life and your day. You have to wake up each day and set your expectation for the day. A lot of it's being grateful for what you do have. I still have an amazing son, Benjamin, my 26-year-old son, who is absolutely amazing, and he's going through this grief journey as well. I have an amazing man in my life for the past couple of years that I don't know where he came from, besides Bumble, but and I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for where I live. I'm grateful that for just simple things like I can vote. I'm grateful for being able to go to work each day. I just have to remind myself of all these things and opportunities that I do have that I'm grateful for. Like I said earlier, the 21 years I had to have with Braden, I'm still so grateful for those things. And I have to consciously and say them out loud every single day, even write them down sometimes, that I'm so grateful for this, and I have to set those expectations, because if you don't, then there's the other side of that coin where you're, this really sucks. Yeah. I'm the mom with the sticker on the back of her car now.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that. I don't want to live the rest of my life that way. So I want to be happy. I want my mom's going to be 80 this year. I want to be happy with her for the rest of her life. I want to be happy with the rest of my family, and I want to be happy with myself. And I want to help the community, I want to help with the animals, and I want to live a good life. So I want to be happy. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Sure.
Okay.
I just wanted to kind of think it through.
For me, it was with the PTSD therapy. I actually did a video for the VA, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And it was as I did the EMDR therapy, and as I kind of got a grip on things, even as my marriage was ending, it was right. It was right too, and I remember saying, I actually said in this video, I was like, I get to have joy again, because what I discovered in my years of these trauma after trauma was that I just had I wouldn't say a flat. People know me as fun, and I was always a big laugher, but on the inside there was a certain default setting. Like none of those got to be high or low, right? It was like there was this numb part. So I had high, but it all stayed within a bandwidth. And I definitely, especially in the last 5 years, of truly addressing these issues and having taken them on, embracing the suck, embracing the lost parts, and even embracing the stuff that's happened since then, losing my marriage and the struggles you have in any divorce, and then, losing my company and, just all these things, like the pandemic. And, but then like you, I found a beautiful, wonderful human being in my life. And the number one aspect of our relationship engagement is joy. It's just funny as hell. I noticed her because she's funny as hell, and I noticed we never stopped laughing when we talked. We should do that for a living, and now we just laugh all the time. We rib each other. She's a widow as well, so we got that very dark kind of shared humor that hopefully somebody's tapping the house, because like, God, these people are dark. That's some dark people. Those are some dark people. But it's funny. It is a shared experience, and you have to laugh. And Jennifer was a joyful. Everybody knew Jen was the middle child of 8, big Catholic family. They had a radio on, so her parents always had a radio on in the kitchen. And what that meant was Jennifer knew every song ever written. Like we could, any song, any radio channel, she'd start singing, And one of my fondest memories, driving across the Poughkeepsie Bridge, coming back from a trip to visit her parents, she's singing, "I'm a wanderer" to her thumb. She was saying to her thumb, "I'm a wanderer," It's like, God, you're a pain in the butt. But, and she was just a very, very funny woman. And it was really a joy to full arc back with a partner who's just very, very funny and understands but also understands that we are individuals who have to go through our journeys and respect those journeys. And I think that's so yeah, I think especially for me here late in life is I'm seeking that. I just want to surround myself with people who are joyful, who are friendly. I'm quicker to make friends. So now I seek out the joyful things. I go on solo trips to Portugal. I go on solo trips to Olympic National Park. That kind of thing. I hike all the time because nature makes me feel better. But and now we have this purpose now, and I'm a joyful warrior now. I think if people can describe me in this campaign, especially as he seems to be having fun. Like, yeah, well, I am. I like people. We made 3,000 peanut butter jelly sandwiches today from MLK Day. I didn't do it myself, but we were part of it, and it's like, okay, that was good. That's a good use of our time.
Definitely, that had to feel good. I think that's a really good point. Community.
Yeah.
Being around the community and people.
Yep.
That really helps.
Yeah. I know for sure that Jen would be disappointed that I lost my way, and glad that I'm back on it. She likes to visit everybody around me. Never visits me, but she visits. She tells people, "Hey, Fred's doing great." Well, thanks for that message, and I accept that, and I feel that's important. Same with my parents, who are buried in Jefferson Barracks. I think for me, even this current moment that I'm in, at this moment where I'm running for Congress, which is a fascinating journey. Good. I will find joy in that. I'll do what I can for my community. I'll try to make a difference. If they elect me, great. If they don't, then I'll find a new journey. But I think that's something I owe those who have gone before me and have stood by my side in those times. Everyone I lost was part of my circle at the time, and my mom was my ridiculous cheerleader. Everybody. It's so funny. We had a fundraiser the other day at childhood friends, and her introduction was about my mom. and watching my life through, and that. So I have people I have folks I owe, and I do feel that weight, and it propels me.
Yeah.
Propels me.
One more thing that I've been thinking about, especially in particular, as you go through this congressional campaign, is we as a society, or at least as a certain cross section of this society, I think, talk a lot about empathy to the point where I know a lot of people are getting sick of that word, but I think about it a lot, and I think about the experience of having lost a loved one. And we talked last time we got together about when you go through that. It stops your world for a minute, and it reverberates throughout your family and throughout their friends and the community. And you were talking about people you didn't even know, stepped forward and said Braden was so special to them, and that's one person. And as you think about the scale when you start talking about policy and politics and what we're all living through right now with the cruelty of the current administration and with the negligence, whether it's healthcare or whether it's what's happening with ICE and things like that, or gun safety and gun regulation, and these lives, these invaluable lives, get turned into numbers, and it becomes sort of pieces on a game board, and we shift money around and we think, oh, that's only 1,000 lives or whatever, and it's just, when you boil it down to and you think about the immeasurable impact of a single life, I feel like going through that changes a person and changes your outlook. Certainly has changed mine.
I don't think we're leading with empathy or compassion right now. And I think that's what we need to get back to. I watched something on the news today. I don't know where I did see it, but where ICE went in and invaded somebody's home and took out this elderly man in Minnesota, where, I don't know, it was probably 10 degrees and he was in a robe, I think some shorts on and some slippers, and he was a U.S. citizen, no criminal background. And they're taking him, and it's freezing outside, and they went into his home.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did not have a judicial warrant.
Completely unconstitutional, yeah.
Yeah. And besides all of that, the empathy, right. Have some decency for this person. Right. To know that he's a person first, and respect this person and show some empathy and treat him like a human being. Yeah. I think that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say nobody, but I think a lot of that is happening right now. They're not leading that way. Mm-hmm. And that's really what's hurting my heart right now. And
we are judged as a society by how we treat the lowest amongst us. And I have lost men in combat, and I lost Jennifer, but that should be a giant decision, right? The taking of life. With the shooting, let's talk about Renee Nicole Good. The shooting. Now, look, they're going to argue all day long about the shooting. Did she hit him? Did she not? But what happened to me after the shooting was he called her an effing bitch. Mm-hmm. There's video. He walked over to where her car was crashed. He saw her bleeding. He turned around, waved to his buddies, and left.
Mm-hmm. Walked away.
He left her to die.
Yeah.
That was a human being.
Right.
Yeah. And he shot her. And he didn't care.
Right.
And you cannot convince me he cared. You cannot convince me. My life's been in danger in a war, and I still treated my enemies with more respect than that. We treated our work. When we shot someone in combat, if we captured them, we then treated their wounds. To see an agent of the United States government have such callous disregard for the lives of the people they're supposed to swear an oath to serve. That's why they say, oh, we don't respect law enforcement. I love law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I don't respect thugs. Right. I don't respect those who aren't professional law enforcement. A professional law enforcement officer would have holstered his gun and immediately rendered first aid. Mm-hmm. He would have allowed that local doctor to get in there and try and save her. They would have taken her out of that car immediately and tried to save her life. This was not that. And that, taken writ large, and the callousness of this administration, the callousness of this Congress, and that includes my opponent, Ant Wagner, the ability for them to simply dismiss the needs of Americans, dismiss them as being I tell the story often when I in my stump speech, which once you hear it 50 times, you're sick of it. But I tell the story of my own when they were debating that big billionaire bill, and they came up with this straw man argument. And it's a Republican talking point of these 27-year-old males who are laying around getting free health care and playing video games. Because that's every 27-year-old male dreams of having free fucking health care. But number two, I had a 27-year-old male. My son was 27. He was working full-time as a very high-end restaurant with a very high-end bar, as a high-end bartender, with a school-trained bartender. Not like pulling beers. We're talking trained, went to the top school in Washington, D.C. to become a professional bartender. Didn't get health care. And he had repetitive motion injury from his shoulder from shaking cocktails in a fancy bar, because everyone wants a shaking cocktail. And we went to go get him the ACA a year and a half ago, and he qualified for Medicaid. But to see elected officials who are supposed to represent in a congressional district 750,000 people for a Senate, an entire state, to go on TV and say, yeah, these lazy men, these lazy boys. Like, you don't even know what the F you're talking about. Right. You don't respect us. You don't care. So that radical empathy you get when you have buried someone, when you've lost someone, when you've buried someone, when you've buried soldiers, when you've gone to war, know the cost of, the people I know with the worst PTSD weren't from losing anyone. It was from killing someone. But killing someone's not natural for us. It's not natural to kill another human being. And if you're okay with it, you're an effing monster.
Right.
And that guy is a monster because he shot a woman in the face, cursed her, and walked away.
And it's scary to me.
And it won't bother him. It scares me.
It's scary to me that they are, all of these young lives that are watching this, these teenage young boys and girls that are seeing this and thinking, oh, it's okay. That's how we act now.
Yeah.
That's really scary.
No, I think, probably the last point I'd make in this is like, we've got to return to caring about our fellow people, caring about fellow Americans. They want to tell you as this rugged individuals and built America. That's a damn lie. My family came over in 1640 to New England, and you know why they survived? You know the history? Community. No rugged individuals survived in the New World. Right. They disappeared. You worked your community. That's why when you go to New England, there's community gardens and there's community, there's the town square, okay? Because we all know all these, we went west, rugged individuals. Yeah, you know what happened when they got in trouble? They called the freaking army. So save your rugged individual bullshit for somebody else. Because I know the truth is we survive as a nation and as a society, as community, and we treat our fellow members of our community with such disdain and hatred. And think so little of their needs in their lives. Oh, she has cancer? Too bad. She should get a job. Well, guess what, buddy? Less than 50% of companies even offer health insurance. So spare me your bullshit. When we care about the dollar, when we care about human life, we have lost our way as a society. So, I think losing Jennifer and burying somebody at 29, losing two men in combat at 24, it made me radical. It's funny, always, the meme online, like, what radicalized you? Oh, I care. Well, burying two men in combat, burying a wife and baby, and then being told to suck it up. That's what radicalized me. I am radically empathetic. I am radically sympathetic to the needs of others. And God damn it, should we elect people that are?
Yes.
That's what we want. And these tough guy, that's what drives me the most. Now I'm just ranting. I'm sorry. No. These sons of bitches with their tough guy bullshit who've never even been to war even. It's like, who the hell are you, dude? Yeah. You've never seen the loss. You've never smelled what a burned body smells like. I know what it smelled like 4 days after the battle and those bodies are all rotting. You don't know shit about that. And so I think in very many ways, the reason I'm even sitting here weirdly as a congressional candidate is because I got angry enough to say, who the hell are you people? Who do you think you represent? It's not us. It's not those of us who have lost people. It's not those of us who understand what the stakes of this game are. And I think we need people in Congress who have actually had lived lives and understand that and have some sympathy or empathy. But my God, the callous disregard for humans, not any human. Notice I didn't say Republicans, Democrats, illegal aliens, which is a terrible term, or any of that. No, humans, human beings.
Well, thank you for running and.
But I mean, I think we need to hear that. I think we need people who are willing to step up and say, I'm doing this because I give a damn.
Right.
And I don't know if that'll get me elected or not, but I think be true to yourself. That's all you can do. I think that's for you. And I hear very clear from you. I know it's your show, but it's interesting. I think both of us end up being true to ourselves in the end. I mean, I think we can't. Yes. I think people do lose their way, and I think if you can make your way through your journey and still be you at the end, that's something. And you may get sidetracked for a minute, but
absolutely
in the end, I think if you can just look in the mirror and go, okay, I'm doing it. I'm living. I got up today.
Yeah. It's not every day,
ranted.
But most of the days.
Rant complete.
Good rant.
Last thoughts.
Thanks so much to Fred and Amy for sharing their thoughts and insights. I want to piggyback on some of the things that were said. One of my favorite parts of this interview was when Amy talked about Braden's life, his love of cars and animals, and when Fred talked about his wife Jen singing in the car and how hilarious she was. So going back to what I was saying in the intro about humanity. When someone is gone, we learn what they truly brought to the table, and it isn't a job title or a paycheck or a list of accomplishments. It's those little things. It's their unique and complex three-dimensional selves. I have a policy for myself, which I would encourage everyone listening to adopt, and that's to read every obituary you run across on Facebook and social media. It's always a touching, usually surprising tribute to a life lived and lives touched. And it underscores what we were saying during the interview, the value, the importance of every single individual. Don't let people be boiled down to numbers or resumes or cliches or a social feed. It's enriching every single time, I promise. It also forces us to self-reflect on what we're bringing to our families and communities, and maybe get past some of the rat race, scoreboard, resume, keeping up with the Joneses bullshit that we are constantly bombarded with. And lastly, something I'll be doing more of in this season of the pod is pointing you to associated content, further reading, if you will, on each topic. And for this one, I would encourage everyone to check out the Aubrey Plaza episode of Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang. As you probably know, Aubrey lost her husband last year, and she talks to Amy about it. Aubrey describes her grief like the movie The Gorge, where people are doing their best to go about their lives, even though there is something terrible lurking just over the cliff. She says she can live her life and find happiness, but at any minute, she could also just succumb to throwing herself into this pit of grief. And here's where it comes full circle. This is relevant beyond just the grief of losing a loved one. What I'm really wrestling with these days is accessing joy and being a force for good, even as the world is on fire. And it's not a this is fine situation. It's not burying our heads in the sand, although it might mean turning off social media. So I'm exploring what the difference is and how to move forward in spite of the horrors. I feel like this conversation with Fred and Amy around grief speaks to that. So on that note, please enjoy your week, stay safe out there, and you can always reach me via Instagram or email morsecodethepodcast@gmail.com with your own tips about staying sane in spite of the horrors. See you next time.
Game over.